Everything started from here. Seokjin, 2 March, year 19. I stepped into the principal's office following that. It smelled like mildew. It had been 10 days since I came back from the US, and I had just found out the day before that I'd be one grade lower because of the different school systems. Please take good care of my son. I shuddered at Dad's hand on my shoulder. School is a dangerous place. It needs to be tightly controlled. The principal looked at me in the eye. Wearing a black suit, his wrinkly cheeks and the corners of his mouth quivered slightly every time he opened it. The insides of his blackened lips were even darker. Don't you agree, Seokjin? As I squirmed at his abrupt question, Dad tightened his grip on my shoulder. I felt a twinge on the back of my neck. I'm sure you'll behave yourself. The principal obstinately tried to make eye contact while Dad tightened down on me further. I clenched my fist as his grip almost fractured my shoulder blade. You know you have to keep me informed, right? You'll be a good student, right? The principal stared me down without a hint of a smile. Yes. As soon as I squeezed the answer out, the pain in my shoulder disappeared. Dad and the principal roared with laughter. I couldn't even raise my head. I kept looking down at Dad's brown shoes and the principal's black shoes. The toe caps of their shoes shined brightly, though it was a mystery to me where the light was coming from. Jimin, 12 March, year 19. It had been several days since the new semester began, but my classmates were still strangers to me. It was not hard to guess that they were gossiping about me. I tried to act indifferent but to no avail. We heard you live in an apartment across the river. Why did you come to this school? I pretended I didn't hear the question. I had nothing to say. I just continued walking past with my head bent. Hey, didn't you hear me? I quickened my pace. I had transferred from one school to another as I had been in and out of the hospital. There were no more schools left near my neighborhood to transfer to. I headed for the classroom-turned-storage room that I cleaned as a penalty for being late to school. As I opened the door, I was startled to hear voices inside. Who could be here at this hour? I was about to silently close the door and turn around when someone called my name. Hey, you are Park Jimin, right? They were the senior students who cleaned the classroom with me for being tardy. I wasn't sure whether I should answer them or just leave. Somebody tapped me on my shoulder. Aren't you going in? Without realizing it, I walked into the classroom. It's good to see you again. Don't you remember me? I'm Taeyong. We're in the same grade. Before I knew it, I was sitting down on a chair. The storage room door continued to open and close. The 7 students who did the cleaning together were all there. Nobody asked questions. We just listened to music, read books, danced, and fooled around. It felt as if we had been hanging out together forever. Yoongi, 12 June, year 19. I cut school without thinking, but I had nowhere to go. It was hot, and I had no money and nothing to do. It was Namjoon who first proposed we go to the sea. The others seemed excited about it, but I didn't care either way. Do you have any money? Hearing my questions, Namjoon told the others to dig into their pockets. A few coins and even fewer bills. We can't go. Why don't we walk? That must have been Taeyong. Namjoon's expression seemed to tell him to use his head and think before speaking. Everyone but me was jabbering, laughing for no reason, and romping around. I fell back as I wasn't in the mood. The sun was broiling. It was midday and there was no shade under the trees. The asphalt road had no sidewalks, and every time a car passed, it would kick up a thick cloud of dust. Let's go there. It was Taeyong. Or was it Hoseok? I wasn't paying attention anyways, but it must have been one of those two. I don't see any point in going there. Should I tell them to go on without me? I turned my head and almost bumped into someone. It was Jimin. He stood there as still as a statue. His face was trembling down to the smallest muscle as if he had seen something terrifying. Are you okay? He seemed unaware of the question. His gaze was fixed on a signpost that read 2.1 kilometer to Grass Flower Arboretum. Sweat was dripping off his face, which had turned ashen, as if he was going to pass out. Park Jimin, I called again, but he didn't budge. He just stood there, glaring at the signpost. Hey, it's too hot to go to an arboretum. Let's just go to the sea. I tried to say this as flatly as possible. I didn't know what the Glass Flower Arboretum was, but I had an instinctive feeling that we should avoid it. We are short on cash, Hoseok objected. We can walk. It was Taeyong again. I think we'll be able to figure something out once we get to the train station. Of course, we'll have to skip dinner. Namjoon chimed in. Jungkook and Taeyong whined. Jimin snapped out of it after everyone started heading for the station. Jimin, with his head bent deep and his shoulders hunched, looked like a little kid. I looked back at the signpost. The words, Grass Flower Arboretum, were slowly disappearing from our view. Jungkook, 12 June, year 19. The sun was still beating down when we arrived at the train station by the sea. Our shadows were almost invisible, hovering around our feet. There was nowhere to hide from the sun. I thought I heard the roar of waves and soon a stretch of beautiful sandy beach unfolded before our eyes. It was the beginning of the summer. Early vacationers were already perched under parasols. There is something about the sea that makes me well up with emotions. Taeyong and Hoseok yelled out in excitement and dashed ahead. As they beckoned, Jimin and Seokjin joined them. They called out to me, Jungkook. I waved at them and smiled joyfully. Or, I smiled to pretend that I was joyful. I was still clumsy at revealing my feelings and adapting to strange environments. Someone once told me that I acted like a timid, intimidated child. It was the same that day. I felt a bit ill at ease in the presence of the others, like I didn't belong there. There wasn't much to do on the beach, our impulsive destination. Let's race, Hoseok suggested suddenly and ran ahead. Everyone else gave chase but soon gave up. It was too hot. Namjoon brought a torn parasol he found somewhere. All 7 of us lay down under the parasol. Sunlight passed through the tears in the parasol. Ground spots of sunlight continued to move bit by bit, and we wriggled to dodge them. Do you want to go see this rock? Hoseok held up his phone. There was a photo of a large rock on a beach. They say if you yell out your dream towards the sea while standing on this rock, it will come true. Jimin took the phone and looked at the photo. Isn't it a bit far? It's at least 3.5 kilometers from here. Yoongi rolled over. I'm not going. I don't have any dream in the first place. Even if I did, I wouldn't walk 3.5 kilometers in this heat. No way. Taeyong sprang to his feet. I'm going. We began to walk under the torn parasol. The sandy beach was burning under the scorching sun, and the air was so hot we could barely breathe. We marched on the beach like stragglers, with our feet sinking into the burning sand. Hoseok attempted to make jokes, but no one responded. Taeyong dropped down to the ground and declared he was giving up. Namjoon picked him up to his feet again and gave him a push on the back. All our faces were bright red and dripping with sweat. We tried fanning ourselves with the hem of our t-shirts, but it only blasted us with more hot air. Nevertheless, we kept moving forward. Sometimes before, I had asked the others what their dreams were. Seokjin said he dreamed of becoming a good person. Yoongi said it was okay to have no dream. Hoseok just wished to be happy. And Namjoon, what did he tell us? I can't recall, but it was nothing special. Basically, none of us had a dream to pursue. So why were we walking along this hot beach under the scorching sun to get to some rock 3.5 km away which supposedly makes dreams come true? Along the way, we threw off the parasol that Namjoon, Hoseok and Seokjin had taken turns holding. It did block the sun a little, but it was just too heavy with its steel handle. Stop doing that. That's what Yoongi said to me while we were taking a short break after ditching the parasol. At first, I was puzzled. In fact, I rarely talked with Yoongi and didn't even realize he was talking to me. Yoongi showed me his fingers. They'll become like mine. He also had raw cuticles from biting his nails. I hesitantly put my hands into my pockets. I didn't respond because I didn't know what to say. What's your dream? Yoongi asked. You didn't tell us yours. He didn't seem genuinely interested in my answer. He just seemed to be asking to keep the conversation going. I don't know. I've never thought about it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, what is a dream? I asked after some hesitation. Yoongi answered in his drawling voice. I told you I don't have one. No, I hesitated and continued. I was wondering what a dream is. What do people mean by a dream? He looked at me and then turned his gaze towards the sky, frowning. Something you want to achieve, I guess? Hoseok took over, waving his mobile phone at us. The dictionary definitions are first. An imaginary series of events you experience while you are asleep. Second, a situation or an ideal you hope to realize. And third, false expectations or thoughts that are almost unlikely or completely unlikely to turn into reality. Isn't the third definition odd? How can something that is unlikely to turn into reality be called a dream? Hoseok responded. People sometimes tell you to wake up from your dream, so if you're dreaming of turning back and going home before we get to the rock, wake up from your dream. Some of us laughed out loud, but the rest showed no reaction, probably because they had no more energy left. That's weird. How can something that you want to achieve most in your life and something that is unlikely to come true both be called a dream? Yoongi said, giggling. Maybe it means that people are that desperate. They just can't give up on their dreams even though they know they won't come true. Don't ever try to have a dream. I looked at him in surprise. How come? Yoongi had started biting his nails and feeling conscious of my glance, he put his hands in his pockets. Because it's tough having one. I was curious about why he bit his nails but didn't ask. Instead, I looked down at my own fingers. It had been a habit since my childhood to hurt myself. I don't remember when it started first. All I can recall is the distinct feeling of cutting my finger on a knife one day. After the painful sensation passed, blood spurted from the wound. It felt numb and tingling at the same time. Mom took me to the hospital and I had the wound stitched up, sterilized and dressed. She pretended to make a fuss in front of the doctor but didn't make me dinner or help me take my medicine after we got home. I didn't really expect her to. She had been like that since Dad left. The wound healed very slowly because I kept pressing it with the tip of my nail. Every time I pressed the wound, a sharp pain shot through my finger. It sometimes hurt so much that I was close to tears. But it also helped me feel awake again. Even now, I sometimes feel hollow. Everything seems meaningless and all the energy drains out of me. How much longer do we have to walk? At Taeyung's question, Hoseok seemed to be at a loss. It's odd, I'm sure it must be somewhere around here. We all stood there and looked around. Only the sound of waves breaking on the beach filled the void of silence under the blue sky. Hundreds of thousands of pebbles were scattered across the beach like grains of sand. The rock in the photo was nowhere to be seen. Should we keep going just a bit further? I can't move another step. I'm starving and thirsty. In the middle of our conversation, Jimin heaved a sigh with his eyes fixed on his phone. Taeyong, who was looking at Jimin's phone, violently kicked at a pebble with a hollow face. Jimin read the article aloud. A high-end resort will be built on this beach, and the construction company blew the rock to pieces because it obstructed the view from the first and second floors of the resort. We took a sweeping look around all at once. Yellow bands were installed all along the beach to mark the area that was designated as a development zone, with mammoth excavators roaming about in the background. A sign that read "Sea Wall Construction" came into view. I guess we came to the right place, Hoseok said, tapping a pebble with the tip of his sneaker. All these pebbles scattered across the beach must be what's left of that blown-up rock. It's okay, there's no such thing as a rock that makes dreams come true anyways. Namjoon consoled Hoseok, lightly tapping his shoulder. We didn't have any dreams in the first place. No possibility of realizing them even if we did. It's a luxury for us to dream. Everyone tried to say something positive, but it wasn't working. We weren't expecting much, but we didn't come all the way here to see this either. Yoongi, who told me not to have dreams because they are too tough, was no different. After looking at the sea blankly for some minutes, he began to bite his nails again. He seemed completely unaware of what he was doing. Yoongi. He turned around to look at me. Don't. My next words were interrupted by a loud crash of a drilling sound. We all turned around at the same time. They were resuming the construction work. The loud crash sounded as if it was coming from a massive solid rock being drilled and made the surrounding air roll and pitch heavily. Yoongi frowned and tapped my shoulder. What did you say? Yoongi mumbled something. Don't do that. I cupped my hands around my mouth and yet. Yoongi didn't seem to have heard me and shook his head again, frowning. But now it was no more than a pile of gravel. Is the world tough for you too? I asked. As expected, the earth-shaking rumble of the drill swallowed my voice. Yoongi's puzzled look told me he didn't understand. I screamed again. Do you want to give up on this world too? He murmured something this time, but I couldn't make out what it was. I shook my head, and Yoongi yelled again. Looking at our mime, Hoseok and Taeyong burst into laughter. Their laughter was also inaudible, but their faces showed their mood. The next minute, we were all looking out into the sea and shouting our dreams. Hoseok covered his ears with both hands and opened his mouth wide. He seemed to be competing with the drilling sound, but it was inaudible. It was the same for Taeyong, Jimin, and Namjoon. Each of us cried out a story that would never reach any destination. I was standing behind Yoongi and Seokjin at first and walked past them to the point where the waves rolled in. All of my senses came alive. The others' voices became entangled and formed an intricate web with the somewhat fishy but refreshing scent of the sea and the strong breeze winding round my fingers. Before I knew it, I was screaming out onto the sea amidst the thundering drilling sound. I couldn't even hear what my dream was. Then the drilling sound stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The entire world became silent as if noise had been cut away clean with the knife. Just like that. But our cries were not in perfect order. Taeyong coughed hard as if he swallowed the wrong way while trying to close his mouth in a hurry. Someone's voice made an absurdly high note. The last word heard was, "Please," by Seokjin. Instantly, we all closed our mouth. For a fleeting second, no one moved. Then we burst into laughter again. We held our sides with laughter, all pointing at one another. Let's take a photo here. At Seokjin's suggestion, we stood in a row with the sea as our background. Seokjin set the timer and came running up. Click. This day in the sweltering heat of early summer became imprinted on our memories in this photo. The way back was shorter than the way to the rock. Just when we thought we were about halfway, the deserted parasol appeared. Soon the train station came into sight. Can I keep the photo? Seokjin took the Polaroid out of his bag and wrote June 12 on the back. Your dream that you yelled out, it will come true. I looked up at him. Do you know what I said? Seokjin just tapped me on my shoulder without saying anything and strode ahead. Seokjin, 25 June, year 19. No one was there in the classroom turned storage room. We never made any appointments in advance, but it was mostly filled with people and the murmuring of voices. Such silence was rare. As I stepped inside, I detected a potted plant by the window. Who could have brought a plant here? The room was always dark with no electricity, and the green leaves appeared even greener in the half light coming through the dirty windows. I took photos with my phone. As expected, the photos didn't turn out well. I always thought photos fall short of capturing what the human eye saw. When I approached the pot, I could see the letter H written on the floor, half covered by the pot. I lifted the pot to discover Hoseok's plant scribbled there. I giggled. I should have known. I repositioned the pot to completely cover the scribble and looked around. I hadn't noticed it before, but the windowsills were covered with graffiti and doodles. The windowsills, the walls, and even the ceiling were covered with phrases like admission to college or death, proposals for unrequited loves, dates, and countless names that were hardly recognizable. This storage room must have served as a normal classroom just like any other. It must have seen students file in for classes every morning and leave again in the afternoon. On back-to-school days, students must have filled this room, which had been empty throughout the months of vacation, chattering in a roar. Some of them must have been punished for being tardy and ditching class just like us. Did this classroom see teachers who used violence and less tests and homework? Were there students like me who ratted out their friends to the principal? Suddenly, I began to wonder if Dad's name was on the wall. Dad also graduated from this school. He believed it added to the prestige of our family to attend the same high school and university from generation to generation. I browsed each and every name and finally found his name among those written in the middle of the left column. Underneath his name it read, "Everything started from here."